Welcome to the Deconstructing Data podcast. I'm Jessie Lezak, CMO at BDEX, along with BDEX's founder and CEO, David Finkelstein. What's new, David?
Hey, Jesse. I don't know what's new, but I can't say it's new that it's been a busy week because that's always a busy week, right? But I guess what's new is our new guests. So I'm excited. We've had almost started to get too much into the weeds in our pre-show conversation. So looking forward to getting into it now with our guest.
Absolutely. And as you said, we have another great guest. So we get to welcome on Jason Downie, U.S. CEO of Making Science, a digital acceleration company formerly of Bain and Company and Lotame, as well as Google. And so I'm going to go ahead and bring him in. Welcome, Jason.
Hey, thanks for having me. Good to be on, David and Jessie.
Yeah, absolutely. We're glad to have you here today, Jason. So why don't you kick us off, give our listeners and viewers a little information about you, a little background. We heard a quick glimpse from Jessie, but why don't you give us a little more about your background and tell us what got you to create Making Science, get into what you're doing at Making Science as well for our listeners.
Yeah, sure. So my journey, professional journey, has been very varied. Like I think it's kind of lots of twists and turns. I started at Bain and Company, as Jessie said. I was there for about 10 years out of college, and I actually left Bain to take a detour into professional singing. I was in an a cappella band. We toured the U.S. for 4 years full time. And then after that, I owned a local bar here in Maryland where I live for several years. And then got back into business after those two detours at a company called Lotame. As Jessie mentioned, I didn't know what a cookie was. This was like 15 years ago. And I learned about the online advertising space and the digital space from the ground up, and went from kind of a a data analyst to chief revenue officer at Lotame in 10 short years. Learned a lot about the business, built a data exchange, and then worked with a lot of different data providers, which I know you folks do at BDEX. There's a lot of similarities there, so that was fun, as you said, to talk about at the beginning.
Mhm.
And then I worked at Google for 3 years. I was the director of data and technology for the Americas. I was in charge of the digital maturity advancement for Google's biggest clients based in the U.S. That book included CPG, auto, technology, some finance, some retail, and then recently found Making Science, which is a global digital acceleration company. It's a premier Google partner. And my boss, the CEO, who has founded Making Science 7 or 8 years ago, is expanding into the U.S. So it was a great opportunity. We have several former Google employees on the team. We specialize in the Google tech stack on behalf of clients, and we are an official reseller of GMP. And so that's where we are. And we've got a lot of different kind of technology and expertise that enables the elevation of marketing efficiency for clients here in the U.S.
That's awesome, Jason. That's some journey going from Bain to making music and operating a bar back and then into ad tech. So that's some journey for sure. Look, one of the things we wanted to jump into is privacy, and I'd love to get your take on obviously there's been so much in the past few years that has changed with respect to the internet and privacy and data. And talk to us about what you guys are doing and what you guys are seeing with respect to digital transformation with your clients.
Yeah, sure. Happy to. I mean, as you said, David, the privacy issue is growing in the U.S. Making Science is interesting. We're based in Madrid, Spain. We're one of the largest Google agencies in Spain, if not the largest. And so, as a lot of the viewers know, the privacy movement on the internet started really accelerated in 2018 with the introduction of GDPR. General Data Protection Regulation Act was put into place in the EU to allow for better protection for consumers. The US was kind of a little behind, and still a little bit behind in terms of you know, the actual day-to-day dealings with privacy regulations. CCPA, the California Act, came out. I think it was 2019 or 20. More states have followed suit, so it's accelerating, right? The need for regulators to understand the relationship between the internet, brands, technology providers, and the consumer. And so privacy is a hot topic, and it's becoming more and more of a hot topic as we go forward. It's interesting because obviously consumer expectations are rising as far as their privacy and how their data is captured and used, captured, stored, and used. But consumers are also very concerned with personalization, right? They don't want to see ads for things they've already purchased. They don't want to see irrelevant ads. I know personally as a user, I like to see things that I'm interested in, and I'd like to, have cookies that store data, so it makes things easier for me to operate while I'm online. Um, so there's kind of a threading of the needle that has to happen, where user expectations, technological changes, and regulation all have to kind of like coexist. So I don't know what you guys feeling is on it, but uh, it's certainly a hot topic, and brands are dealing with it in different ways.
Yeah, we actually have a comment from one of our viewers right now that says very interesting dichotomy for sure, and it is. It's a great way to put it. You have all these consumers that say, "I want personalization. I want things targeted to me," but then at the same time, you have all these regulations that are saying, "Well, we're not going to allow that, right? We're going to limit how you can do that, and you have to jump through a certain number of hoops in order to be able to do that." So it definitely is a challenge. We're seeing it across the board with our clients as well. There's a little, level of frustration in the sense that they want to serve their customers better at the same time that, they have to deal with all these limitations and tracking and regulations that are affecting their ability to do that. One of the things that we always talk to our customers about is it really comes down to sort of this value exchange. It's this, the the brand, the publisher, the website, wherever it is that you are, the app, you have to first establish a level of trust with the consumer to make them feel comfortable sharing that data, making them comfortable saying, yes, you can track me. Right, because sort of the easy default is, especially on iOS, is no, don't track me. No, I don't want you to track me. No, I don't want to track me. But sort of you have the other situation where if you're using an app and you trust, this app for whatever the reason, you trust the brand and you want a better experience, then you're more apt to say yes. And so it's up to that brand, that publisher, to build that level of trust and help the consumer feel comfortable that they're getting some sort of value in exchange for being tracked or sharing some data.
Yeah, totally. I was just going to latch onto your value exchange, terminology. This is exactly right, right? Like if you give something private, you want to get something that you value in return, right? So, and in our range of clients, we see a lot of different, levels of success with that, right? Like people, I heard one of my partners when I was working at Google said, people want to have a relationship with their car, but they don't want to have a relationship with their cookie. Like cookies that they eat, not internet cookies. But
Right.
so it's sort of like, how much value exchange can you get? Like, how close are you to the consumer, right? If you're selling shoes in an app and you give a 20% discount because you gave your email address, that's a pretty good exchange, right, of value. But if you're walking in the grocery store and you pick up a roll of toilet paper, like, do you want to give your email address to, get more info on your toilet paper or whatever? It's not the same thing. So depending on what business you're in, depending on like the repeatness of the consumer, how close you are to the consumer. Is it a direct to consumer transaction, or is it more like a anonymous type of a transaction when you buy something? All those things factor in, right? And so we see a lot, I mentioned that we did a lot of work with CPGs. There's a lot of, sweepstakes that are happening. Like you see Coke, for example, you can scan the can, right, with your phone to get rewards and things like that. There's a lot of innovative things that brands are doing to make that connection, right? So if you it's like the box top thing when we were kids with cereal, except it's digital, right? So that's those things are all the value exchange is crucial for sure.
Jessie, I love how you have to, as soon as he mentions QR code, our QR code goes up there.
I saw that. I was like, that was amazing. Is somebody doing that? Jessie, you're very tricky.
I thought that was my cue. Well, this has been a really great conversation on privacy, but I know the next one's going to be really good too. Something that we talk about a lot, first-party data strategy. Could you kick us off on this one, Jason, talking about first-party data strategy and CDP, CDA?
Yeah, sure. I mean, this dovetails quite nicely with the privacy piece, right?
Mhm.
If you have a value exchange with a consumer, you're collecting what we call, first party data, which is data that you own, data that you collected directly from a consumer that was consented in a very explicit way, right? GDPR talks a lot about, consent and are you a processor? Are you a controller of the data? Well, with first party data, there leaves no doubt as to how the data was collected, who collected it, who owns it, what is it used for, et cetera. So first party data is kind of the gold, right? It's the way that you differentiate. I know we talked about the title of this chat being first party data in the machines creating lasting differentiation. I believe that the way that you create lasting differentiation into the future we're going to talk about AI a little bit. We're going to talk about, building lookalike audiences and machine learning and all this sort of stuff. The one thing that you can do as a brand to create differentiation for yourself into the future is to collect as much first party data as you can in the most consented way possible so that you have the highest bar, right? Regulations keep changing. Laws and things keep getting added on and on and on. But if a consumer trusts you, David, to your point, and they've given you their data freely in a value exchange way, you're going to be great, right? In 20 years, like we talked about at Google a lot, like, when I was there, like we're not trying to like get to a standard that gets us past the next set of laws that may or may not come out, right? That somebody may pass in 2024 or 2025. We want to be preparing for 2050. We want to be preparing for the future. And the way that you prepare for the future is you collect first party data consented directly, and then you organize it and you utilize it in a way that's differentiated for your brand in order to create the best and deepest relationships with your consumers, which makes your marketing, your messaging, and your ROI the most efficient it can be.
Yeah, for sure. And that's exactly what we talk about with our clients is the importance of that first party data, and the importance of not just collecting it and managing it properly, but safekeeping, right? Going back to the privacy and making sure that it's kept secure, because the last thing you want to do is end up with a breach and lose that level of trust. Too many companies have done that in the past.
What was that one? Cambridge Analytica? What was that?
Something like that, yeah. Yeah, but every once in a while you get like, I just got something. I didn't even know about it, but I guess LensCrafters had a breach, and there was some data of mine was breached there, and I ended up getting a $60 check. So $60 check came in the mail, actually, for me and for my wife and for my daughter. So it's like, oh, okay, that's interesting, but that was because of a data breach. And so you don't want to be a victim of that. And I think that above and beyond, collecting and building that relationship is also securing that data and keeping it secure so that you don't end up in what could be a really much worse situation, which is losing all of that trust with your customers.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, security is one thing for sure. And then there's also organization, right? Like, I think this topic, Jesse, was, 1PD plus CDA, CDP, right? CDA stands for Customer Data Architecture, which is a term I found out, which was coined by Accenture and a colleague of mine now who works at PwC, Brad, and he coined it. He and his team coined it, which is amazing. I didn't know that. I was amongst celebrities until recently. And then CDP obviously is Customer Data Platform, which is kind of a more specific term to be, where data, customer data is kept, collected, connected, and that sort of thing. So, protecting it and then organizing it, right? What people have asked me, like, what does CDA or CDP mean to you? And what I think, kind of the ideal way, a CDP is basically like multiple data sources in, and then, multiple ways to connect it in different places. Like, that's kind of the very generic version of it. So when you take your first party data, you put it somewhere, and then you get other first party data. Like, we talk a lot about data de-siloing, right? So if you're a big brand, if you're an US OEM, you have data from your cars, right? Inside the owner data, you have dealer data, you have, your website data that's collected with Google Analytics or Adobe or whatever. You have call center data, right? There's all this data and then lots of different departments own it. I mean, there's hundreds of databases that need to be, de-siloed and put in one place that can be used. And this is like early stages for almost all big companies. It hasn't even happened yet. We haven't even scratched the surface. To use an American baseball analogy, people say, oh, I'm still in the first inning. I believe that when it comes to CDA, CDP, we're not even in the game yet. We're still in the parking lot, like looking for a ticket, to get in. It's just there's just a lot of work to be done, and I think that, like, with the advent of the cloud, we talked a little bit earlier about AWS, whether it's AWS or Azure or GCP. I try to encourage, like, our clients to own their data, right? Own the instance of their data, and don't, like, give it to somebody else to do it, but to have, the people and processes in place for you to own your data. I sort of think of it like, if you have your own, if you use a kind of a CDP, you're renting space in an apartment building. You're renting, like, an apartment, like where all your data goes, but somebody else owns the building. Whereas if you, you know, acquire an instance of a cloud instance, and you can build it up from scratch to your own specifications, you're buying the land on which your data is going to be built, and then you can build, your own apartments and join them all together. So I don't know what you think of that analogy, but that's kind of what I've started to be testing it out.
That's good.
Yeah, it's good. And we've had conversations on here before about the importance of data stewardship, is the whole idea that someone needs to be in charge of this data, and take responsibility and ownership of it within the organization. And sometimes it's multiple people. But, again, getting back to making sure that the data is secure, making sure that it is being shared properly across divisions and things like that. That's another important aspect that we see. And I think that sort of plays into the CDA part of it, right? The architecture.
Yeah, you can have different permissions for different databases, right? Like, and some of them are more sensitive than others, right? If you're a bank, and you have customer data on your account data, then that's going to have a much different level of security than if you're a bank that has a sweepstakes going on, or a website, you're collecting data through the pixel, and you're, collecting through a first party cookie or whatever. So for sure.
Definitely. Well, I guess this is a good time to transition into our third topic, which is...
Jessie, we had a question out there. I don't know if you
did
saw.
we?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm missing these comments. I didn't see these. Okay, let's see. We've got a few. We've got, if the intent is to improve the relationship with the client and the client finds value in the relationship, then you will be looking at the data the right way. That's an interesting comment. Any thoughts there, Jason or David?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think he's talking about the, relationship. It's the value exchange, right? If
For sure.
Yeah.
Yep. And then he continued on. So, composable is the direction we are moving for most businesses. Do you think it is a 5-year timeline before it's commonplace for CDPs?
In making science, we use that term as well. We agree with Don. It's a great term, composable CDP. So it's like, you're adding, you don't have to have one, like I said, one company. You're not renting an apartment, you're buying the land. And on that land, you can put all sorts of different structures to compose what's a bespoke, version of your CDP or your CDA. Again, one data source in, and then maybe you get another data source in from, like, if you use the OEM analogy again, you have factory data, you have truck data, you have fleet data, you have call center data, you have email data, right? All these different data sets come in, and then you can use them for different purposes, whether they be IT side or marketing side or both. So composable is the way. And then you asked about 5 years. Yeah, I think what I often tell my clients is start now, because you're never going to finish. I don't know what the end is, but like, it's going to be a while. So and you keep learning, you keep evolving, you keep changing, you keep adding to it, test and learn, fail fast, right? Culture of experimentation, all that sort of stuff. That has to start happening. If you're not doing that now, your competitors are, and they're going to get ahead. Because to me, the differentiation, as I said, is the data relationship, the data you collect, the relationship you have with the consumer, plus your culture of how you're going to use that data, run it up against all the different cool stuff you can do, from here going forward. And as things advance with the machines, to put it simply, that culture is what's going to differentiate you and get you to have a leg up.
Yeah, and I think timelines are always interesting to talk about, because we could say it's 5 years, but at the pace things move, it could become 1 year. You know what I mean? And it's just, everything happens so fast. I mean, we had a conversation just over a year ago on this podcast about AI and software development, and how someday you'll be able to just tell an AI what you want to develop, and you can already do that.
It's crazy, right?
A year ago you couldn't, and in a year. And it's like, when we were talking about it, we were saying 5 years. We were saying, yeah, probably 5 years from now, and then it happened in a year. So to Don's point, with respect to the question, gut says 5 years is probably a reality, but then it'll happen faster, most likely. That's just
was that Moore's law, like, is, I think, a little out of date, right? Moore's law was like double every 2 years or something. I think it's like double every 2 months now. It's crazy.
Yeah. Everything happens a lot faster now, and now this probably will help us segue into the next conversation, which is AI. With AI, we're seeing the ability to advance a lot of areas of technology that in ways that probably no one really thought about, and all of a sudden there's so many things that you can do with AI. So obviously one of the things we want to talk about is applications for marketing. There's so many out there. I mean, there's so many out there. It's crazy. And it's not all just generative. There's all kinds of, things with respect to ad targeting and things like that too. So would love to talk to get your take on that, Jason.
Yeah, sure, David. So I think about, at Making Science, we think about AI for marketing as a maturity curve, right? In the same way, for years we've been talking about the BCG digital maturity curve, which is awesome, right? It's like you go from nascent to emerging, connected, modern marketer, et cetera. Same thing, we think about for AI, and we have, like, one of the slides that I often put up when I talk to clients that are new, or we're taking the next step with them, is, where are you on the AI maturity curve? Where do you want to be? What kind of capabilities do you have currently to take advantage of these different initiatives that we have on the curve? And then what do you need internally to get there, right? We talk about 3 Ps a lot, right? People, process, platforms. Do you have those things in place to to take advantage of the AI, and you have to get those things in place in order to really do it. So when I think about the AI maturity curve, I think about like basically, to put simply, and this is David, to your point, there's many, many different ways to think about it, but the way that I simply try to think about it is automation, predictive, and then generative, right? And like that's kind of a way to move along the curve. So automation, basically, you're doing things faster. You're doing things, with AI to make things easier for your people to do things in a shorter amount of time, so you can do more with less. So that's automation, and then predictive is like, which customers do you want to target for marketing, and how much do you want to pay, right, in the bidding process, for example, to target those people. And then generative is, what do you want to say to those people, and what's the most efficient way to say it. So we have in Making Science, like I said, we have different tools for each of those uh, general stages, and there's a bunch of different things you can do, in each of those. But does that make sense as sort of a, kind of a framework?
Yeah, I like that a lot, actually. I actually took a note on that: automation, predictive, and generative, and I like the way you broke that down. I think that makes a heck of a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just, the generative piece. I was talking to some Google folks a couple months ago. We had a little all day session in New York with, and one of the women I was speaking to at Google has been working on generative AI for like 5 years, right? And in cloud. And she's like, wow, like since ChatGPT came out in Q4, like the whole world's gone haywire. And it's like we're getting all this attention now, but we've been working on it for a long time. And there's been a lot of applications already. But now it's like, now that people, once people get their hands on stuff, it's
Right.
just like blows up, right? So that's where we are now. It's like, oh, I can write, in Making Science, we have a product that allows for a retailer to write product descriptions for 10,000, or more of their products at once, right? Like like I have blue shoes, I have green high tops, I have, red low tops, whatever. And so like you can, with our UI, you can put in like the tone of voice for the brand. Is it playful? Is it serious? Is it scientific? Is it funny? Whatever. And then you could say, I want short descriptions, or I want long descriptions, or I want, more focus on the images, whatever the case may be. And then you put it in, and then there's a human in the loop aspect. So you have like an algorithm that says, you know, like these 10,000 descriptions, like 90% of them are great. They're in the ballpark, but these 10% you may want to look at. So you can have a human go in and look at, spot check all of the different descriptions to make sure that they came out right. You can also toggle between Vertex AI and ChatGPT. So you can have the Google LLM, or you can have the Microsoft LLM. So, these are just that, but that's like one example of a generative use case, right? But then there's predictive, where you're saying like, great, I've got all these descriptions, but are they working? Who am I talking to? Or am I showing Jason an ad for, women's shoes, or whatever the case may be? That's, it's not quite applicable. So you have to have like the right scoring and the right modeling for the audiences. I know at BDEX, we were talking beforehand about how you create lookalikes based on a first party data set. Like, are you, predictively talking to the right people? And then what are you going to say?
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right. And so for us, it's more predictive when we're talking about audiences, because one, we're looking at, historical data, people that have, had some interaction, a purchase or a conversion of some sort. And then we're using that to predict, and then feeding that back into the analysis to improve the predictions going forward. And yeah, so that is a complete predictive AI for sure.
Yep.
Cool.
Very cool. Well, anything else to add on AI applications for marketing?
There's too many.
I know.
There's
Anything
too many, and every day I see another like LinkedIn post that says, "Oh, these are the top marketing AI tools." And guess what? that graphic gets bigger and bigger and bigger. It's like a Lumascape, and it's just getting out of hand.
Oh, he broke out the Lumascape.
Yeah.
When I first,
I always give them a plug every once in a while because they're friends as well. They've been on the show, so
yeah. Terry's the man. I like when I got to Lotame in 2010. They handed me a Lumascape, and I didn't know what a publisher was or an average. Like what a SSP, a DSP, DMP, like the alphabet soup of the ad tech space. And now I think there was only one Lumascape at that point. Now there's like 20 or 30 or more. It's
Right.
amazing. There's mobile and there's OTT and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, AI. I mean, it's like I come back to it. I still think we're in the parking lot looking for a ticket. It's just gonna get crazy. I saw a stat. Somebody on my team uncovered this stat that said that only 3% of companies have a productized AI solution today, which is pretty amazing, considering how 100% of companies are talking about it.
Right.
But to have actually like something that you can like touch and feel, that you can demo, you can use, it's getting more and more. Like you said, every day there's another one that comes out, and I think everybody's just kind of racing to do that.
Yeah.
I think also
to your point before about ChatGPT, I mean, once that came out and everybody could get their hands on it, then it kind of felt more real. And so everybody just started talking about it more. And like you said, there were always these other tools, right? I mean, we already had our tool. There's all these other tools that existed within, that use AI, and like, Facebook and Amazon, Google, they've all been using it. But it was never anything that you could touch and feel. And as soon as ChatGPT was released and everybody could log in and start asking it to do things, it just I think that helped kind of get the snowball over the hill, and now it's just rolling.
Just accelerating, and it's funny. I was just had a thought about, Skynet, right? Terminator 2, like it gets plugged in and like when is when is everything going to become self-aware? And when I was in Cannes this summer, I was talking to a couple of clients and prospects, and they're like big brands, right? And they're like, we have to use this responsibly, and that's a really important thing too, right? There's hallucinations, there's misinformation, all this sort of stuff happening. And so like, how do you solve for that? It's like, it's run amok, you know what I mean? Like when the internet first came out, it's like everybody has everything doing it. Like, and now that the algorithms are getting so great, you may have seen that movie Social Dilemma on Netflix. If you haven't, I mean, if for the viewers, if you haven't seen Social Dilemma, definitely watch it. I watched it and I
watched it. Yeah.
Like mind blowing, right? And I had to go. I have kids that are now, I don't know, 19 through 24, but like 3 years ago when it came out, I sat them all down and said, come here and watch this with me again, because you got to understand what's happening to you. Right. Yeah. Somebody in the movie, one of the experts said, if you don't know what the product is you, Yeah. And so it's just interesting how the AI is making that more and more possible. And so you have to just be really responsible too, right? You have to use it. You have to test and learn. You have to get good at it. You have to, create differentiation for your brand, but you always also have to know that, like, the implications of all of it. And so it's just, it's tricky,
It is tricky, and it's scary to an extent, because every new technology gets abused. And so, just as we've seen in the ad tech space, all the ad fraud and all of that, well, AI is going to create a whole new level of fraud, right? We had someone on here talk about privacy, data privacy, as far as, your own data, and the fact that all of us have information about ourselves out there, right? Your name and your address, and who knows what else is out there, right? Well, apparently there are fraudsters already using that and using AI to use that to target all of these phishing scams. So it used to be that, you'd get a phishing scam and it might tell you something like, try to, start up a conversation with you about doing a favor for your boss or something like that. And they're posing as your boss. We get all of those all the time, but apparently there's some really scary ones where they're posing as like school administrators and telling you that there's something's wrong with, your child at school, and they can do all of this because all that information is out there. But not only that they can do it, they used to be able to do it, a couple a day, but now with AI, they can automate this whole process and they can target thousands of people at once. It's pretty scary.
Yeah. I mean, millions per minute. And, like I'm lucky enough to have both my parents still around. And my mom is like, she'll text me like, Jason, should I click on this? Mom, don't click on anything ever. Just don't. And I'm like worried, like I'm starting to turn into that, right? It's like, what I have to keep up with the AI just so I don't end up, falling victim to scams. I'm calling my kids now like for the free tech support, crazy.
Well, this brings us closer to the end of the show, so I want to make sure we at least get into tech stack, Jason. This is something we ask all the guests who come on Deconstructing Data. What are some of your favorite tools in your tech stack?
Well, for us, we are, as I said, we're a Google shop. Making Science in the U.S. is mostly a Google shop. That's where our expertise lies. Most of our employees on the team in the U.S. Used to work there. So we obviously use Google Analytics 4, which is the new one, which, is app plus web with a lot of AI mixed in there to making sure the tagging is set up for your sites. We use DV360 for, and this is all marketing tech stack, by the way, for the most part, for programmatic, campaign manager, to track all that sort of stuff, search ads 360. So that's kind of like the main, and GCP, all that stuff is built on Google Cloud. We have a couple of really interesting solutions, right? We have I talked about automation. So we have a product called Ad Machina, which is built on GCP, which allows for automation of your search ad writing. So if you're a travel company and you're doing offers and you're changing your campaigns, we have some AI that allows the ads to be automated. That's built on GCP and executed in search. We have some predictive AI called Gauss, which is aptly named for the scientist. And basically that's a predictive modeling tool that's built on GCP that allows for lots of applications to come out of that, like MMM, audience expansion, audience scoring, all that sort of stuff allows you to do custom bidding in programmatic and in search. And then I mentioned generative AI. We have Trust Generative AI, which allows clients to write their product descriptions, and all that stuff is built on Google.
Very cool.
Awesome.
Some new ones on there. Well, since you have such an interesting background, especially in music, I want to make sure and at least ask you one of our post-topic questions, Jason. So if you could go back when you first came into the industry, what is the number one piece of advice you would give yourself?
Go with the flow. Go with the flow, right? Don't get too stressed. I tell my kids, they're always, they're starting their careers. My oldest, our oldest daughter is in art, and she's a photographer. She's a really talented photographer, and she's doing some real estate photography. She's a hustler, she's doing real estate photography. She's doing some of her artistic photography. And then recently she just got a job, surprise, surprise, at a digital ad agency. And she's doing a lot of creative work there. And it's just like, she didn't expect to do that. And now she's turned and started that. My oldest kid's graduated. He's a full stack developer at Booz Allen. And he's like, I want to do video games. I want to do, get into video game development, do some other things. I think the way that, I went from consulting to singing to bar to ad tech to Google to Making Science, just like you can take lessons from each place and apply it to the next thing. And I think really it's about focusing on the people and focusing on what you can learn at each stop along the way. And then just don't get too stressed that I have somebody on my team that, had a significant birthday and she was like, I felt like I should be somewhere in my life, at this point. And it's just like, well, like there is no right, right way to do it. It's just, are you enjoying the journey? Are you learning? Are you progressing? Are you having fun? That sort of thing. So go with the flow and be flexible, and just be always willing to learn.
It's great advice. I like it.
Definitely. Well, that's really great. And in closing, Jason, would you like to tell listeners how they can find you?
Yeah, sure, I guess. So it's Jason Downie. I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me there. We have makingscience.com. You can go there and see what's happening. And friend me on Facebook too. I'm like the older generation. I'm still on Facebook. I don't do Instagram much. But my wife and I just came back from Everest Base Camp. We just trekked there. I literally got back from Nepal like 3 days ago.
Wow.
Yeah, and so like all the updates are on there from that was good times. I think I'll put something on LinkedIn about that as well. It's been a lifelong dream of mine to get to see Mount Everest with my own eyes. So that was pretty awesome. So, yeah, I don't know if you guys have done any trekking, but it's definitely worthwhile. Being outside is one of my favorite things to do.
Same here.
Yeah, definitely. No, well, that's really great. Thank you so much for joining us. And audience members, we hope you'll check out BDEX's Omni IQ, which is the QR code I plugged in the middle of the show. So if you're seeing the video, you can scan the QR code. But if you're listening on podcast, simply go to bdex.com and click the try for free button. And then just simply upload a CSV of your first party data and get gender, birth year, and household income analytics on your data. There's no credit card required. We don't do anything with your data. And so yeah, check it out. We'd love to hear what you think. And we'd also love to hear from you about what you think of the show. So please reach out to us at info@bdex.com if you know anyone who you think we should have on the show. And also just share your qualitative data with us so we can make it better for you. Thank you again so much for being here, Jason.
Thanks, Jessie. Thanks, David. It was really great.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jason. Take care. Great to chat with you, and hopefully we'll do this again.
Yeah, I love it.
All right.
Sounds
Awesome.
good. Bye.